Welcome back to the 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. My name is Wayne Kimmel, managing partner of 76 Capital, the sports tech venture capital company. On this show, I interview top sports entrepreneurs, athletes, and executives who are shaping and many times changing the sports business industry. You can subscribe to our show on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and on our 76 Capital website. Today, my guest on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show is the chairman of the board of MGM Resorts International, Paul Salem. Paul built Providence Equity Partners into a global private equity firm that was specialized in media, communications, and the technology industries. He grew it from $170 million in assets to nearly $60 billion in assets over the time he was running the organization. He's a graduate of Brown University and Harvard Business School and is intimately involved in several impactful nonprofits organizations all across the country. And I'm really looking forward to this wide-ranging conversation about sports and media and tech and gaming, and just excited to have you on the show. Paul, welcome to our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
Oh, thank you so much. Really, really good to be here, and love talking sports. So looking forward to this conversation.
Well, let's get right to it. I mean, it's really been amazing. I mean, you're chairman of the board of MGM. MGM is right smack in the middle of all this incredible convergence that's going on with sports, technology, media, and gaming. And there's never been a better time to be in the overall asset class of sports. What are your thoughts about what's going on today in the world? Yeah,
it's pretty interesting. MGM is one of the world's largest gaming companies. We have 67,000 employees. We have assets in not only Las Vegas, where we own good 40% of the Strip, but we also own part of T-Mobile Arena. And when you see how successful the Vegas Knights have been, and you see how successful the Las Vegas Raiders have been, now that you got the Oakland A's coming to town, and I'm sure there'll be a basketball team sometime in the future, you really see how Las Vegas has become a sports town. But even before that, when the world decided that betting will become legal, even though we all know that there was a lot of illegal betting going on in the United States, and still is, that sports become a heck of a lot more interesting when you get to bet on them. And we're seeing it. We're seeing the market in the U.S. Really be a lot bigger than we actually anticipated. I think FanDuel just said that they think the U.S. sports betting market could be $70 billion when, and I think when we formed BetMGM, a joint venture between us and a UK company Entain, we thought the overall betting market could be in the, 20 to 30 billion. So it might be two times bigger than we initially thought. And we're seeing it in both iGaming and sports betting. It's just, people in America like to bet. And as long as they do it responsibly, we're happy to help accommodate them. And so I do think you're going to see this trend continue. I think states need the money, more than ever. So they're all, taxing us, and you'll see them trying to tax us even more. But there is a win-win here for both the states and for the consumer and the sports betting companies.
You touched on something interesting at the beginning. I mean, about sports and just in general, the experience that people, and we'll specifically talk about Las Vegas, right, would have prior to sports teams coming to Vegas. Bill Hornbuckle talks about sort of this 72-hour experience that you can have. Bill is obviously the CEO of MGM. But I mean, like, what's it been like to watch sort of the change as to from a Vegas perspective? Yeah,
I'm 61 years old, and I remember going to Vegas for the first time and getting my $20 hotel room. And Vegas has changed a lot. Now we you pay for some great hotel rooms. You can get the best meals anywhere in the United States because the best restaurants are all there. And when I bring my buddies out, it's you go see us. You go see the Vegas Knights, or you go see the Las Vegas Raiders. You go to a great restaurant at Bellagio or Cosmo or Aria, and then you go to the Sphere, right? And you go see what's going on at the Sphere, which is not owned by MGM, but it's one of those great things. And then you've got Shadow Creek Golf Course where MGM owns, and when you think about it, you barely can fit all this in 72 hours. And 43 million people visit Las Vegas a year. There's nothing like it in this country, and there's nothing like it in the world. And you get the best food, the best accommodations, the best sports, the best live shows. You get the best entertainment. It really is a fun 72 hours that you can spend there. And what we're finding, and we're getting more and more people living in Las Vegas because there are no taxes, and you can live off the Strip and have a great family life with good schools. So you're really seeing Vegas turn into something a lot more than just what most people thought it used to be.
Well, and you also can now really talk about not only just Vegas, but all across the United States. I mean, I think one of the things that's really shined a light on gaming in general has been the fact that sports betting is now legal in 38, 39 states, plus DC, and people are really starting to now see the gaming industry and the impact that it can have on an economy, what it can really do to a community. And now you're starting to see kind of sort of, I wouldn't say in a way where I think eventually will be like almost like mini Vegases all around the country, where you're going to have the gaming experience plus the sports piece and the entertainment all coming together. Are you starting to see that from an MGM perspective?
Yeah. One of the bigger gaming markets is the state of Michigan, and we also own the largest casino in Detroit. And we're seeing, you would think there'd be some degradation of what we call bricks and mortar versus digital. And what we're seeing, it actually lists both. And so, I really do think that there's going to be a convergence of both the digital and the bricks and mortar. And right now, we're FanDuel and DraftKings are 1 and 2 in the digital world. We're number 3. But when you look at us at iGaming, we're right there at the top. And it'll be interesting to see if more states allow iGaming, because that is our bread and butter. And we think that it's people like to be entertained. They like to get the adrenaline of gaming. And I hope to see more states adopt iGaming, because let's face it, almost every state has lottery, right? And the lottery is really no different than iGaming. And I think eventually, as most of this funding goes towards schools, and every school system is always asking for more money. They need more money. This is a good revenue source for states that I've yet to see many states that aren't desperate for money.
Well, what do you think about, look, sports betting went so fast. iGaming many years ago people thought was going to go fast. Do you think over the next couple of years that iGaming will really start to pick up and we'll get, more than the 6 or so states that we now have?
Yeah, I think it's gonna take time for state governments to pass. I think New York is evaluating that right now. My guess is we're going to start seeing iGaming spread a little more as the sports betting is now, as you said, in 38, 39 states. We're also seeing Canada is just adopting iGaming and in the Edmonton, Calgary areas. So we're going to actually we think we'll see more iGaming, but it's really a function of state governments. And if they open it up, we're going to be there.
What are your thoughts on how technology has really impacted the gaming industry, and how it's really enhanced the ways that, whether it's from a sports betting or even iGaming perspective, and how it's really continued to move things forward over the last several years?
Yeah, I think it's just tech in all of sports. Your jersey has chips in it, so you can see how far someone on a football field runs, or the European football field. You have I was just out at the AT&T Pebble Beach. tournament. Great win by Rory McIlroy, and you know, every hole has ShotLink now, right? And you know, the amount of data that you have on just about everything. You look at, you know, are we going to be having robo umps in Major League, right? I think you're going to see that in spring training this year. You know, I always laugh with, you know, I can't believe we still use chains to decide if someone made a first down. I mean, it's kind of silly, right? There's too much technology. You know, so I think technology is just going to keep on enhancing the game of sports. And listen, if you think about viewership, you know, viewership's not growing in some sports. I mean, obviously NFL's doing great and will always do great. You know, but baseball and golf, you know, how do you engage young fans? Well, you're going to engage them with betting. And, you know, I know it worked in fantasy. When, you know, we always had our fantasy, you know, golf, you know, every major, we would say, okay, pick your top 5 players. And, you know, most, you know, when I see, you know, some of the assistants playing in fantasy and they have no idea who these golfers are, but they're so excited. I know that's going to translate into better viewership and a better viewing experience for people. So, you know, if you don't adopt technology, you're going to lose your audience. And, you know, our audiences have a lot of things to choose from. So you better be on the cutting edge. And I haven't even thought about how AI is going to affect sports, but AI will affect everything, and sports will be one of them.
Well, it's certainly affecting it in many ways. Is, you know, and a lot of times we don't even really realize it right now. But you think about how that's being used across so many different companies, and certainly a lot of the companies that we have at 76 Capital. That's some of the core tech that really is looking to, you know, innovate across the whole sports industry. And when you think about, you know, innovation and really giving people great experiences, you mentioned that MGM's an owner of the T-Mobile Arena. The experience that fans get when they go to a Knights game has really, in many ways, changed a lot of other NHL teams to up their game and create a, you know, really have a show. Talk about like a little bit of that and how you've, you know, how you guys have been involved with that.
I know our CEO, Bill Hornbuckle, went to Steve Ballmer's new, you know, LA Clippers. You know, I have not been there, but I hear it's just phenomenal. And, you know, we own T-Mobile Arena with Bob Foley and Phil Anschutz. And, you know, we were the cutting edge when we opened that up, right? And now, you know, now LA Clippers is cutting edge. So you have to continually evolve, and then you go in the Sphere, right? And I don't know if you've been, Wayne, to the Sphere, yes, but it's you know, that's a whole new level of experience. We love it because, you know, MSG spent all the money on it, and, you know, all of our customers love going. So they get to stay at our hotels and be in our casino, and then they get to go to that show, which is great. So so we're quite happy with that. And but yeah, technology just keeps on going faster than you can comprehend, and you just try to stay ahead of it and stay with it. And I'm pretty confident that you know, live entertainment, live sports, it's always something we did at Providence Equity. Out-of-home entertainment, we think, is a huge category that is not going away, and I think it's a great investment. You know, we at Providence Equity, we invested in World Triathlon Corp, you know, the producer of the Ironman races, and you know, we ended up selling that, and then a few of us bought it back, and so now I personally have a small stake in it. And you know, these are loyal, you know, endurance athletes that put tattoos of the Ironman on. You know, I got my Ironman watch on, you know, my $40 Timex. That's the best-selling watch in America. Yeah, there's a lot that sports bring to you know, the general public, and I do think out-of-home entertainment and laying on sports betting on top of it is just it's just a trend that's not going to stop.
Yeah, absolutely. Did you ever compete in an Ironman?
No, I'm I've done some of the mini ones,
Okay.
the sprint ones. I am a good biker, decent swimmer, and a terrible runner. So I don't want to embarrass. I remember doing my first, Olympic-sized marathon, Olympic-sized triathlon, and this 12-year-old kid blew by me when I was swimming, and I was like, okay, this might not be my thing. So, but I did catch him on the bike.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, one of my partners, Carlos Silva, he has his tattoos from each one of his races, and my other partner, John Powell, he even went above and beyond and became an Ultraman.
Yeah.
And competed in that. So it's really it's an amazing culture, and I've heard all their stories, and but I've never done it myself. So well, I'm not sure if I'll ever get there, but it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome to even compete in some of the smaller races. It's incredible. It's really
we'll do our triathlon at the bar.
Right. Go around that'd be easier. Well, you mentioned Providence Equities. I mean, look, it was an incredible run that you had, and creating that business and building it to over $60 billion in assets. In maybe a short snippet, tell a little bit of that story, like how that all came about. How did you end up even creating the firm? And who are your partners in that? And what was the growth like?
Really, Jonathan Nelson is the I would say the true founder. Him and a guy named Greg Barber, where they were at a company called Narragansett Capital, and then I joined, and Glenn Kramer as well. So it was really Jonathan, Glenn, and I who had a great partnership for 30 years. Now the younger generation is running Providence Equity and doing an amazing job. And sports was always an important part of who we were. We were one of the first, if not the first, private equity firm to specialize. And Jonathan always had this media background in cable TV and broadcast TV. So we were doing broadcast TV, radio, cable TV, and then the first deal we ever did in Providence Equity history was backing a guy named John Stanton. He formed a company called Western Wireless, and then he formed a company called VoiceStream, which we sold to T-Mobile. Was now T-Mobile, sold it to Deutsche Telekom and became T-Mobile, and one of our signature deals. But over the 30 years of building up Providence, one of the first sports deals we ever did was we teamed up with the Yankees and formed the Yes Network. The first, not the first, but amazing regional sports broadcasting network, which was a great deal for us. And then we invested in Major League Soccer. We put $150 million into which was the marketing and the media arm of Major League Soccer, and that was a tremendous return for us. And then we did World Triathlon Corp, and we also did a partnership with Real Madrid. So we actually had a very good franchise in sports. We also did Topgolf. We were one of the early investors in Topgolf, and sold that to Callaway. So we were always big believers in out-of-home entertainment, and sports I think is probably the greatest out-of-home entertainment that you can invest in.
Well, you mentioned earlier some of the names of the guys that you've backed, like you talked about Stanton and people like that, right? I mean, like, were there certain traits of entrepreneurs or executives that really kind of, you're like, that's my kind of person. Like I really want to work with that person. Would you guys have like was there something that you specifically said, or you just were like, no, that's who we want to go with?
I mean, when I give talks about private equity at business school, and I get always asked the question, what's the secret to your success? And I honestly think we're really you hope you're a smart investor, but you really are a headhunter, right? If you can back great CEOs, the rest takes care of. I mean, John Stanton, maybe one of the greatest CEOs of all time. I mean, he was the first inductee into the Providence Equity Hall of Fame. And it's so funny. I remember John saying early on when he was in his 30s that, his dream one day was to own the Seattle Mariners. And today he owns the Seattle Mariners. I mean, it's pretty amazing. And, let's face it, us private equity guys, we're smart enough to get into the business of investing money, but the real heroes are the CEOs, and we back some amazing entrepreneurs, and I'd always rather invest with a great CEO who can help figure out to make a business great than just invest in a good business with a terrible CEO. I'll always want to ride the great CEO, because they're the I always know where the great CEO is when you go to the board meetings, and every board meeting you just learn. And sometimes private equity people think they know how to, they know more than the CEO. And if that's the case, you got the wrong CEO.
That's a really interesting point. It's one of the things we always talk to our CEOs about, is that, when you come to a board meeting, you're there to tell us what's going on, tell us what the future is going to look like. And you're not really there to ask us for your support. You're there to sort of tell us what you really want us to go do, and do that in a very convincing way. And then most likely we'll probably go with you. I don't know how you feel about that, but it's like, because I want them to be confident many times, really, and if they're not, hopefully you pick them. There's the kind of people that you pick up front, but it's really important to have the trait of like really knowing where you're going with that business, because that's not what a board is meant to do. We're not there to run your company for you.
Yeah, and you've probably run into a bunch of private equity guys who think they can run the business better than the CEO, and that's a company you should short, because there's a reason why you're in private equity, because you probably you probably shouldn't be running a company. But the way we solved a lot of those issues, we had some great operating partners at Providence Equity. We had this one guy named Barry Allen. Barry probably worked on 7 or 8 companies for us. And he always said he's the translator between the private equity and the CEO. Barry ran many companies over his career. He, helped run Ameritech. He ran Quest Communications. He ran other companies. But I remember we put him in as chairman of World Triathlon Corp, right? Ironman. And he was a mentor to the CEO. He helped find the CEO. He was a mentor. And every company Barry worked on was a home run for us, because he had that operating experience, and he had that gray hair that a lot of CEOs really liked, and so we try to help our CEOs the best we can by trying to find other talented CEOs who have made the mistakes that they don't want this new CEO to make. And if the private equity guy can stay away and be helpful in things they're good at, like finance and budgeting and when to go access the public markets, the stuff that we actually are trained in, and stay out of the operations, is probably going to be a pretty good model for success.
I saw on a video that I was watching recently of you, and you're giving a talk about at a I believe it's a charity that you're involved with, a nonprofit that you work with, and you talked about when someone tells you no, what does that mean? Love to hear your thoughts on that.
For me, no is the start to yes. It drives me crazy when someone says no, and then you accept it. If you really believe in it, then you've got to turn you got to turn somebody around from no to yes. And by the way, if you don't succeed, you go from no to no. So what? What's the big deal? You've lost nothing, maybe some time. But if you really believe in something, I think you can always turn a no into a yes, because if you believe in it, that must mean there's some merit to it. And I think in today's generation, there's not enough people skills out there, because people are spending way too much time online. And I did a TED talk on this subject, and really about luck and believing in yourself. And I love when someone tells me no, because then I'm not gonna give up. It becomes almost like a sport.
Do you have any sort of real world examples of something in your life or in one of your companies that similar, that you gave that advice to someone and then it turned into something special?
You know, I tell this story about when I was at Brown University and I was trying to find a job, and I sent out hundreds of resumes, and I got a lot of rejection letters. We used to have a little wall of rejection letters, and I was in New York City one day, and I was walking by 101 Park Ave, and I remember I got a rejection letter from 101 Park Ave, and I was kind of catching an Amtrak train from New York back to Providence, Rhode Island, and I had 3 hours to kill. So I just literally I had that in my backpack. I had that rejection letter. So I looked up and I said, oh, 101 Park Ave, this woman named Sheila Smith sent me this rejection letter. So I went up and I just asked to see her. And the receptionist would not let me see her. And I ended up, waiting around because I had 3 hours to kill. It was much nicer, waiting in this nice lobby. Finally, the receptionist kept on saying this guy wasn't leaving. So Sheila Smith comes out and she says, why are you here? And I said, well, here's a letter that you sent. She goes, yes, that's a rejection letter. I said, listen, don't you think there's any chance you might have made a mistake? And she goes, well, we get thousands of resumes. And we get thousands of resumes. And I said, well, of course you get thousands of resumes. How do you know if you haven't made a mistake? I think you made a mistake. She says, well, thank you for coming in. But, so I left, caught my train to back to Providence. 7:30 the next morning, I get a call from Sheila Smith saying there was a cancellation. Would I like to come back to New York for an interview? I mean, I must have guilted her into it, right? And so I always tell the funny part of it is I interview with 7 different people. I got another rejection letter, but I told that exact same story to, a Prudential Insurance Company, and they liked the story so much they hired me on the spot. So, that story actually helped me get the job at Prudential, and Prudential was one of the first investors in private equity. They helped start Blackstone and KKR, and they were one of the first investors in Providence Equity. So, don't ever take no for an answer.
And it all worked out. I completely agree. I always say no is like the beginning of the conversation. We're just getting to know each other a little bit. You don't really fully understand everything that's going on here. But this has literally been great as we start to wind down here on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show. Paul, you've been a great guest. Love having you on the show. I mean, just hearing what you're doing as chair of MGM, what you did at Providence Equity Partners, and when you kind of look into the future right now, what do you see as kind of like the next big thing that's coming along, whether it's, in the sports and in gaming world? Where do you sort of see things going over the next several years?
Well, I do spend a lot of time thinking about it, and I am trying to figure out how is AI going to change the world of sports? And when you think about analytics in sports, feeding all the data into your generative AI model, I think that puts everybody at the same level, right? Because everyone's going to have the same model. Everyone's going to have pretty much the same data. And so then you're going to go back to what makes people successful, on the playing field. And so it could be an interesting thing to say people might be going back to the basics of the eye test for an athlete, right? Because everyone's going to have the same data. Everyone's going to have the same AI model. And so, it's going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. And it's going to play out quickly. I think you're going to see that. You're almost seeing it already because everyone's using the same analytics. But I also think that, live sports betting, will Rory make that putt, or will, all that stuff is just going to get better and better and faster and faster. We have live dealer now in our Atlantic City and Las Vegas casino, where people literally just watch online someone else gaming and then can bet along, right? I mean, it's incredibly boring. You're watching something, but imagine how interactive you can make that. And, so I think we're in the first inning of what's going to happen with live sports betting and live, gaming. And, it truly is a click away. And I think you're going to see how that's actually going to get people more passionate about sports and actually probably help viewership. Because if you're not worried about viewership, and you're probably not a good executive.
Well, you certainly should be, and completely agree with you about what's next and what's going to be happening across the sports media and entertainment, and gaming industry. It's so much is going to happen over the next several years. There's so many great entrepreneurs and companies that are going after all this stuff. So excited for that. Excited to do more work with you and BetMGM and all the other companies that are under the umbrella and other things that we'll probably end up doing together in the future. You never know. So, Paul, thank you so much for joining us on our 76 Capital Sports Leadership Show.
And I have to have one last thing. I got to wish you luck because I imagine you're an Eagles fan. So,
yeah.
So good luck in the Super Bowl. And I was fortunate enough to be, when I'm a big Patriot, New England Patriot fan. So I remember when Donovan McNabb choked on that one and we won. But then I remember, the flip side, I was with my daughters in Minnesota when, I think Brady threw for 505 yards and Philly just won and frankly outplayed us and outcoached us. So good luck this I guess it's next week. Yeah. Exciting times
coming up. Absolutely. And can't wait to spend spend the rest of the week in New Orleans and do some business and then have some fun with the Eagles. So it's really going to be really amazing. I mean, just to see how big these events have now become. Look, I believe that all Super Bowls should be played in Las Vegas because it was just so easy
just another weekend.
Right. It really felt that way. And it really did. I mean, I've said that to so many different people and they said, like, what do you mean? I'm like, yeah, but that's Vegas knows how to move people around. It's not wasn't such a big deal.
Yeah. Well, I've been to Super Bowls in New Orleans too. They do a pretty good job. And I can assure you, you're going to have fun.
I'm looking forward to it. Well, again, thank you so much for joining us on our show.
All right. Take care.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Bye. On behalf of the entire 76 Capital team, thank you for joining us for this edition of our Sports Leadership Show. Please remember to subscribe to our show on your favorite podcast network or on the 76 Capital website. You can also explore the hundreds of episodes we've produced over the past several years on those same networks. And as always, go out there and make it happen.